To understand the impact of Paramahansa Yogananda's Autobiography of a Yogi, you have to understand that it isn't just a memoir, it's a bridge. When the book was first published in 1946, it arrived at a time when the Western world was deeply entrenched in a materialistic, scientific view of the universe, often seeing spiritualism as something purely emotional or, worse, something superstitious. Yogananda's book arrived to challenge that boundary, suggesting that the soul could be understood with the same precision that a scientist uses to study a plant or a star. The book begins with a very specific dedication to the American botanist Luther Burbank. It might seem like an odd choice for a spiritual text, but it's actually a vital clue to the book's intent. Burbank was a man who spent his life looking at the miraculous complexities of nature through the lens of science. By dedicating his life story to him, Yogananda is signaling that his own story is about finding the divine through a systematic, almost scientific observation of spiritual laws. The story follows the life of a boy named Mukunda Lal Ghosh, which is the name we know today as Paramahansa Yogananda. We meet him in his childhood in Gorakhpur, India, and from the very first chapters, it's clear that Mukunda is not a typical child. He experiences vivid, startlingly clear memories of a previous incarnation as a Himalayan yogi. These aren't just vague dreams, they are presented as concrete, historical recollections of a past life. This establishes the book's foundational premise. Reincarnation isn't a myth or a metaphor, but a biological and spiritual reality that can be remembered through advanced consciousness. As Mukunda grows, we see the two primary forces that shape his character, his parents. His father is a man of logic, discipline, and mathematics. He represents the structured, rational side of the world, the part of the mind that needs order and sequence. His mother, on the other hand, is a woman of radical, sometimes even reckless, compassion. She is a woman of intense devotion and charity, often giving away everything the family has to those in need. This creates a fascinating tension in Mukunda's early life. He is caught between this drive for logical understanding and this overwhelming pull toward emotional, devotional love. It's a duality that stays with him throughout the entire book, as he eventually seeks to marry these two forces, the scientific method of yoga and the deep devotion of the heart. Driven by an intense, almost painful hunger for God, Mukunda spends his youth as a wandering seeker. He moves through the landscape of India, meeting various saints and holy men, searching for a teacher who can provide the key to the mysteries he feels pulsing in the universe. This period of wandering is not aimless. It is a rigorous, often difficult search for a specific kind of truth. The central turning point of the narrative, the moment the book shifts from a childhood memoir into a profound spiritual manual, is his encounter with his guru, Sri Yukteswar. If Mukunda is the seeker, Sri Yukteswar is the master who provides the map. Sri Yukteswar is portrayed as a completed, triumphant saint, but he isn't a soft or purely sentimental figure. He is rigorous, demanding, and incredibly disciplined. Through his relationship with Sri Yukteswar, Mukunda is introduced to Kriya Yoga. This is perhaps the most important concept in the book. Yogananda doesn't present Kriya Yoga as a matter of blind faith or a way to escape reality. Instead, he describes it as a scientific method for spiritual realization. It is a technique involving breath and energy that is meant to be practiced with the same precision a scientist uses in a laboratory. Through this rigorous training, Mukunda's journey transitions from that of a wandering seeker to that of a disciplined monk. He learns that spiritual progress isn't about waiting for a miracle. It's about mastering a technology of the soul through systematic practice. The relationship between the disciple and the guru is the emotional and spiritual spine of the book. It's a bond that transcends the physical world, and Yogananda describes it with a sense of profound gravity. He shows us that the role of a guru is to act as a mirror, reflecting the student's own divinity back to them, while providing the discipline necessary to break through the ego. While his spiritual training reached its peak under Sri Yukteswar, Yogananda's mission to the West actually began much earlier. He first traveled to America in 1920, accepting an invitation to speak at a religious congress in Boston. This was the start of his lifelong effort to bring these spiritual sciences to the West. However, the narrative continues through the passing of Sri Yukteswar in 1936, a moment that further solidified his divine directive. As he continued his work in the United States, he found himself operating during a period of immense global upheaval. As the world descended into the chaos of World War I, Yogananda observed a landscape that was technologically advanced, but, in his view, spiritually starving. He settles in the United States and begins to establish the Self-Realization Fellowship. He builds churches in Hollywood and San Diego, creating what he calls an eternal anchorage for people living through the turbulence of war. The book becomes a record of this mission, the struggle of translating the deep, ancient concepts of Indian mysticism into the language and mindset of the modern Westerner. He has to navigate the skepticism of a scientific age, attempting to show that the miracles he witnessed in India weren't magic, but the natural results of mastering the laws of nature. And the book concludes with a vision that is both personal and prophetic. Yogananda speaks of a world colony in Encinitas, California, a community designed to promote universal brotherhood and to demonstrate that the soul has no nationality. He envisions a place where people from all walks of life could live together, not just as neighbors, but as spiritually awakened citizens of a global community. And the book ends not with a quiet retreat, but with a grand, expansive vision for the future of humanity. When we step back from the plot to look at why this book remains such a massive cultural force, several themes emerge. The first is the science of religion. Yogananda was incredibly successful at framing spirituality as a technology. By using words like method, technique, and law, he made the idea of God realization feel accessible to the Western mind. He wasn't asking people to stop being rational. He was asking them to apply their rationality to the realm of the spirit. This synthesis is what allowed the book to resonate so deeply with people who were caught between traditional faith and modern science. The second theme is the East-West synthesis. The book itself is a physical map of this movement. It starts in the ancient traditional landscapes of India and ends in the modern, urban and suburban landscapes of California. It's a story of migration, not just of a man, but of a whole system of thought. Yogananda's success in the West helped pave the way for the massive presence of Eastern philosophy in Western culture that we see today. There is also the role of miracles as a literary and theological device. Throughout the book, Yogananda recounts stories of people walking through walls, being healed of terminal illnesses, or manifesting objects out of thin air. To a modern reader, these can be difficult to digest. But within the context of the book, they serve a specific purpose. They are signs and wonders intended to validate the reality of the divine. I meant to prove that the laws of the physical world are not the only laws that exist, and that by mastering the spiritual laws, one can navigate the physical ones in ways that seem impossible to the uninitiated. We should also consider the duality of devotion and discipline. The book is a beautiful, if sometimes intense, depiction of the tension between the heart and the mind. We see this in the way Mukunda is raised, but we also see it in the practice of Kriya Yoga itself. You need the devotion to fuel the search, but you need the discipline to sustain the progress. Without devotion, spirituality becomes a cold, intellectual exercise. Without discipline, it becomes an aimless, emotional wandering. Yogananda's life, as presented in the book, is an attempt to find the perfect equilibrium between the two. Ultimately, the Autobiography of a Yogi is a book about the search for a home. Not a physical home, but a home within oneself. It's about the idea that no matter how much the world changes, no matter the wars, the political shifts, or the technological leaps, the fundamental nature of the soul remains the same. The book's enduring legacy is found in its optimism. Even as the world was tearing itself apart in the 1940s, Yogananda was writing about a world colony and a global brotherhood. He was suggesting that the solution to the chaos of the external world was a profound, scientific, and deeply personal awakening in the internal world. He didn't just want to tell his story. He wanted to provide a manual for anyone else who felt the same hunger for something more than the material life could offer. It is a testament to the idea that the most ancient truths can find a new life when they are translated into the language of a new age.